Do you ever feel stuck, like you're living your life on autopilot? Are you ready to shift into high gear and reach the success you so richly deserve? Welcome to the Play Big Movement podcast. I am your host, Sharon Lechter, entrepreneur, business strategist, and best-selling author. Playing big is not about settling for good enough or being comfortable. It is about reaching your highest potential and achieving your greatest success. Join me in my Play Big movement as I interview top experts in business, money, and entrepreneurship, all ready to serve you and to help you play big, be number one in your field, live your legacy, and create maximum impact. Hello, all. Welcome to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast with Sharon Lechter. I am excited to introduce to you a relatively new friend for myself and somebody that is very accomplished. Her resume is longer than my own, and I'm a whole lot older than she is. So, Candy Valentino, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Sharon, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see you again.
Well, I just love the time we spent together, and I just wanted to be able to share your history and your passion with my audience as well. And you have created success in multiple different industries, and then created a charity on your own, and you've just been such an incredible gift to the people who know you, and then started the Founders Organization. So I'm really anxious to hear a little bit more about Little Candy, but I also want to talk about, you have a new book that came out, and that is called Wealth Habits: 6 Ordinary Steps to Achieve Extraordinary Financial Freedom. Love that title. So let's start, Candy, by telling us a little bit about Little Candy, how you got started.
Yeah, so I, grew up in a trailer to 2 teenage parents on government assistance when I was first born, because, if you're born to teenage parents in poverty, who kind of wouldn't be? My dad was a mechanic. My mom cleaned houses, and I watched 2 people work really hard. Life was more about survival than intention. So a lot of the things I talk about and that you talk about weren't ever things I had learned. So kind of growing up in that environment, obviously, anytime you have a difficult childhood, typically can bring some pain and trauma and abuse. And I did suffer all of those things when I was a child. But really the turning point was being exposed to personal development when I was like 15. And then kind of just put me on a path of reading and self-education in books, including the first one that you wrote. I think I read the first year that it came out. I was still in high school. And so this is such a full circle moment for me. It was such an honor to meet you the first time that we did. And it's so great to see you again, because if it weren't for the wisdom of the things that you talk about and that you put in your book, I know firsthand that I wouldn't be where I am today and wouldn't have built the wealth that I've built in my journey. So just publicly, what I've already done privately, I just want to thank you for showing up so big and for being a female, because at the time it was all men on the cover of those books way back then.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you, Candy. I appreciate that. But what was the trigger? I mean, there are a lot of people that have, and I do applaud you for being able to create the incredible success you have with beginnings that were so struggle and filled of strife and poverty. But something sparked inside of you, and maybe it was personal development. What was that first book that you read? And what was it that you saw that hope, you saw that opportunity for more in your life?
Yeah. So, there was a moment, I was about 3 a.m. It was 3 a.m. I was about 15. I was in the living room of the trailer. We only had, it was like 4 rooms in this whole place. And I remember flipping through TV and I saw this infomercial, because those were big back in the 90s. We didn't have the internet. And it was Tony Robbins, who I didn't know at the time. He was just kind of getting started out. Infomercials were big. And I'll never forget, he was sitting like at this beautiful resort with all these palm trees and places that I had never seen before, saying that you don't have to be a product of your circumstance, that you get to choose. And I'm sure I'm butchering the quote, but that's what I took from it, that you don't have to be a product of your circumstance and you do get to choose. And it was like the first time in my life I had heard that I actually had a choice in all of this. And so I think it was that hope and knowing that if I made a decision to change my life, that there's proof all around us that somebody else has done it, right? We always have proof of, maybe we made a mistake, or maybe our parents didn't have this, or maybe our environment looks a certain way, but there's also proof of other people that have done it differently. And so I think it's just what we focus on and who we look up to is really going to be the difference. So hearing that the first time was just like, okay, well, let's play this out and see if this is right. And then I just sat down, wrote my first set of goals when I was 15. And it was things like, have a certain size house and drive a certain kind of car and, have a job with my name on the door. Cause that seems so prestigious when you're 15 and, in and out of a mechanic shop my whole life. And I achieved every single one of those financial goals and more by the time I turned 23. So it was the first time I had heard hope and why I started my first company at 19.
And I love that because, and I'm not sure there's an answer, but so many, particularly women, are hold themselves back. And your history, and I want you to take us kind of on a journey through all these companies that you built, shows an evolution of courage. And I talk about the why not attitude. Businesses solve problems, serve needs. But so many women hold themselves back, and I'm sure that you agree with that. And you didn't. You continued moving forward and understood that you were in control. So where do you think that came from, and what's a message you have to other women who are really not living at their highest potential?
It's such a great question. So I feel like we always have the proof. And we always have the why. Like we always have the doubt of why we can't do something. But there's also all the reasons why when we look at around us of why we can. And so I always encourage people that if you're struggling right now or you feel like you're not showing up, I want you to take out a sheet of paper. Like literally stop this podcast, take out a sheet of paper. And I want you to look back in your life 6 months, 6 years, 26 years, and look at all of the things that you thought were going to destroy you. The things that you didn't think you were going to overcome, the grief that you had to heal from, the abuse that you had to climb out of, all the things, you were handed a baby and you had to take this baby home and figure out how to raise it and feed it. You get married, you have to figure out how to be in a relationship. Look at all of those things. And when you doubt that you're going to not be able to figure out how to start a business or build wealth or understand your finances, review that list and remember who you are. Remember that you overcame 100% of your worst days. And anything that you thought was going to cripple you or destroy you hasn't, because you're still here. So that's the proof that you need to step into your most courageous version of yourself. So I just choose, rather than believing the doubt or somebody else's opinion, I just choose to believe all of the things I've overcome are way worse than the fear of trying to figure out some real estate investment deal, right? Like it's nothing in the scheme of life of what we've already had to come. So I think that's important for people to remember that not only do you get to choose your life, but we have proof of how we can do it because we're so much stronger than we give ourselves credit.
And one of the things that I share with people that I think is so consistent with what you're saying is that, we all have things that stop us in our tracks. And some of us go into grief. I lost my son 10 years ago. So I went into what I call neutral or status quo for about 2 years before I could get myself out of that. But it was when I understood, in fact, I thought I heard him in my ear saying, "Get over it, Mom, there's more for you to do." And that's, you're still here for a reason. So no matter what's happened, whether it's been a divorce, a financial setback, an illness, you're still here for a reason and you survived it. Right. And so the opportunity, as you said today, is to make a choice. We're all where we are today because of the choices we made before today. And if we want something different, we simply start making different choices. Right.
Yeah. And I think I remember, to your point, I remember when I heard way back when I started my first business, I was 19 years old, and I heard a stat that only 2% of women founders ever did $1 million in their company. And we all could hear that same stat and think, oh, the odds are stacked against us. It's only 2%. Or you could look at that and say, 2% people did it. 2% of the women did it. So what do I need to do like those 2% so that I can do it too? It's like someone else has already forged the path. Find out what they did it, because why not you, right? It's like the pro athletes, like kids that want to be a pro athlete. Like someone has to be a pro athlete at some point. Why not you? And so I looked at that in business when I found out that there was only 0.5% of female founders that ever exited their company. I was like, I want to be part of that 0.5%. What do I need to do to figure that out? And then you just look at those other people in their journey, and there's so much wisdom from the experience that you can apply into your own life.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about the companies that you've built, and then the reason you decided to do Founders Organization.
Yeah, so my very first business I started when I was 19. I got an SBA loan, a 6-week run rate, and I had just had to figure it out. I had no idea about 941s. I started with 7 employees, and I basically had 45 days to run out of money. And I started a spa, a wellness spa, back before they were really a thing. We were the only one in our region. The closest one was like an hour and a half away. And just really learned about business through doing. I don't have a degree or some education. I literally just am self-taught. And in between clients and working with employees, I'd sit in my office and read books, and because that's what was available to me, books about business, books how to grow. And so I saw really easily that once you start treating customers well, you treat employees well, and you have that retention, that then you can go and veer off into anything. So I veered off into product manufacturing. I had a jewelry company, went into e-commerce, all different verticals from there, because I'd already had consistent clients that trusted me in one vertical. So I was able to expand a new brand from there, and diversify, creating our own products and things like that. And I started investing in real estate at 21. So I bought my first property in foreclosure, realized really quickly that I didn't like being a landlord. So I actually renovated and sold that property, and then kind of found my way again, just through trial and error, through flipping, doing renovations, through long-term holds, through Airbnb when that first came out. Because I think it's good to try and see what you like, because you can be any type of investor. And then from that space, I've always wanted to exit. I started my first company at 19, and I said, I want to play the long game. I want to do this for 20 years so that I can retire and then do what I want, when I want, as often as I want. And that's exactly what I did. I thought, what can I trade now? What could I give up now so that later I can do anything that I want? Because I watched my dad be self-employed and work all the time and miss so much of my childhood, and not be able to do a lot of things even on the weekends, because he was always trading time for money. So I just wanted to do things a little differently and build a big business that eventually I could exit. So I built it with the end in mind, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't. And so after I exited, I kind of came into this online world for the first time, and I saw a lot of misinformation, to be honest. I saw like a lot of, smoke and mirrors, and kind of,
there's a lot of it, more and more every day, it seems like. Yeah.
And I was like, how can I give people real information of, like, maybe not the sexy stuff, kind of the boring stuff, but what actually matters? And so that's why I created Founders and started sharing more online, and eventually wrote the book.
Yeah, I love it. Tell us a little bit about the book.
So Wealth Habits, 6 Ordinary Steps to Achieve Financial Freedom. For me, there's nothing about my journey that was special or unique. I didn't create some magic bullet. I didn't, innovate some crazy product. I'm not the smartest, the most connected person, but yet I was still able to find my way. And I want people to understand that they can find their way too, that it's not just about going through life. Like at some point we get to decide what we want to run towards, right? Mm-hmm. Like so often I think we have grief, or we've overcome something and we're running from maybe our past. But if you don't ever intentionally stop and just decide what you want to run towards and what life you want to create, I feel like that's when we get a little bit older and look back with regret. So the book is literally a playbook of how to build wealth, how to change your mindset, the way that you view money, because as you know, most of the things people are carrying around have either been caught or taught by somebody else in their life that probably didn't have the best beliefs or view about money anyways. So being intentional about how you build it, how to acquire assets, and then how to truly stop trading time.